Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
The fight over right to repair has been in the news quite a bit lately. The idea that if you buy a product, you should be able to repair it yourself or take it to an independent repair shop and have it repaired yourself. And actually, right to repair has been the law under the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. The problem is that manufacturers don't recognize it. So some manufacturers are notorious for saying, well, if you buy a product from us and you get it repaired someplace else, well, all bets are off. You know, the old cut this tape and void the warranty thing on the old VCRs. Remember that? So it's been widely reported that the president is taking some action on this. Lauren Good wrote an article for Wired magazine called Joe Biden Wants You to Be Able to Fix Your Own Damn iPhones. And it's been reported a million places, but I like Wired magazine, so I'm going to go with their version on this one. A sweeping new presidential directive includes, among other things, an initiative to secure consumers' right to repair their own devices. Recently, the president signed an executive order directing the Federal Trade Commission to draft new regulations limiting device manufacturers' ability to restrict independent repairs of their products. The new rules for technology manufacturers are part of a sweeping order aimed at a wide range of industries with the collective goal of increasing competition across the U.S. economy. As you can imagine, if you have a device and it breaks and you have to take it to the manufacturer or one of their reps to get it fixed, it's not as competitive as if there's independent shops saying, hey, look, we can do it cheaper. So the new directive to the FTC comes a couple of months after the commission delivered a 54-page report to Congress that concluded there is scant evidence to support manufacturers' justifications for repair restrictions. Reuters had reported that a draft of the executive order was in the works, and the White House press secretary confirmed on Tuesday that the president would soon issue an executive order to the U.S. Department of Agriculture that would address the farmers' right to repair their own equipment how they like. And that gets back to the John Deere issue. John Deere in particular is a company that's famous for saying, look, our stuff is so complicated and so unique that only we can fix it, or only our people can fix it, or only people using our devices can fix it, and the only people who get those devices are our people. So therefore, you can't fix your own tractor, even if you bought it from us. And that's the weird concept, is if you bought it, you own it. But if you want to fix it, shouldn't you be allowed to fix it? And of course, they'll say, well, you can fix it if you want to, but we're just not going to get you the parts or any of the diagnostic materials or any of the wiring diagrams or any of the service manuals or any of that stuff. It's too soon to determine what the FTC's new rules might look like or how long it will take the agency to impose them. But the president's involvement in repair issues brings national attention to a topic that has, for the most part, been addressed only in legislation at the state level. And it could have major implications for large tech companies and equipment makers that have historically held a tight grip on how and by whom their devices can be repaired. In a fact sheet detailing the 72 initiatives in Friday's executive order, the White House acknowledged that companies' restrictions on the distribution of parts, diagnostics, and repair tools makes repairs more expensive and time-consuming for the end user. In the order, the president's administration brands such restrictions as anti-competitive and urges the FTC to force companies to allow their customers to use independent repair shops to fix the devices they own or to allow them to perform repairs themselves. And just to put this in perspective, imagine that you bought a Ford product, brand new. You drove it, the warranty expired. Now, you want to take it to some shop to get some work, a water pump. And you go and they go, oh, sorry, but they only sell water pumps to Ford dealers. We can't even get the water pumps. You'd be like, what? Of course you can go to an independent shop and get your car fixed. But there are manufacturers of products who say, no, you got to take it to one of our people because otherwise, knock yourself out, but the stuff's not available. So the executive order is considered a significant win for right to repair advocates. There's groups like the U.S. Public Interest Research Group and the repair kit seller iFixit have argued for years that tech consumers and large equipment buyers should have better options for repairing their devices. These groups have alleged that tech giants like Apple and Microsoft, as well as John Deere and large medical device makers, have made it intentionally difficult for consumers to seek independent repairs, often forcing consumers to go back to the original manufacturer for fixes. For example, Apple has in the past used software notifications to discourage customers from replacing their own iPhone batteries. And do you remember in the old days how easy it was to get the battery out of a phone? And the reason that they're difficult to get out now didn't happen accidentally. They did it on purpose. At the height of the coronavirus pandemic in spring of 2020, biomedical engineers spoke out on the ways that medical device makers withheld repair manuals for critical medical equipment. In February of this year, An undercover investigation into John Deere conducted by USPIRG showed that it was extremely difficult, if not impossible, for farmers to get diagnostic software, tools, or parts from dealers. Again, that was Vice in their investigation. Carrie Sheehan, iFixit's lead on U.S. policy, said, "We're really excited to hear this news," in response to the executive order. "And we're grateful that the administration is stepping in with a strong endorsement for right to repair and really pushing the FTC to take action." The links to news reports in the White House's fact sheet that back up its claims of stymied competition specifically point to the issues around cell phone repair. But the language of the order itself urges the FTC to broaden the right to repair by restricting tech and other companies from discouraging do-it-yourself fixes. Such language indicates the FTC's regulatory target will be much bigger than the device in your pocket. So this is, again, like I said, something that's been being talked about for quite some time. I was a guest on Louis Rossman's show. And Louis Rossman is a guy who fixes computers in New York, and he does a lot of stuff on right to repair, and he's become one of the champions of right to repair. And I said, when I was on his show, I said, the odd part about the right to repair battle is that the law on the books right now, the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, specifically says that manufacturers cannot force consumers to buy particular parts or go to particular places for service unless they go through the process of proving it's necessary and explaining why it's necessary and explaining why they can't do it the other way. And the interesting thing is that these manufacturers just say, no, you can't do that. But they've never gone through the process of proving it. And so the Federal Trade Commission actually has had the power all along to do this. But the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, I think it's been around almost 50 years now. And those rules have been around for decades. And yet, what happened was years ago, a few of the big companies, like the auto manufacturers, recognized the handwriting's on the wall and we're too big, we can't get away with this. And so they stopped saying you've got to buy a General Motors oil filter, or a Ford oil filter, or a Chrysler oil filter to get an oil change. They couldn't say that because they knew it wasn't true and they knew they couldn't go through the process to prove it. So those companies were abiding by the law. And then along come these other tech companies, and they're kind of new and cutting edge. And so they say, hey, you know something? Our stuff is so complicated, you can't work on it. So don't work on it. And we're not going to make the stuff available for it. And we're going to, only put stuff in the supply chain to our people and so on. And attorneys like myself looked around and said, wait a second. The law says you can only do that if you go through these processes and jump through these hoops to prove that there's a reason for this, and you, in essence, get the FTC approval. And I don't recall these companies doing that. I don't think they ever did do that. But the problem is, obviously, that rule, the way it was written, was kind of toothless, right? So what they really need to do instead is just say, look, instead of saying you can do this if you do this, let's just say you can't do it. And if you don't like that, then you come in and argue this about it. And it's unfortunate it took this long for this to come around this way. But here's where we are. And, a lot of people, like myself, I've never owned a large farm implement. But I remember when I lived in Bad Axe, Michigan, worked at a radio station there, and we had advertisers who advertised things like Massey Ferguson and huge, huge, huge tractors and so on that you use out on a large farm. And I remember when I heard how much they cost. I remember being shocked at how expensive the equipment was. And then you go out and you look at some of the stuff and you realize, and I remember actually going to a dealership and climbing around a modern tractor with enclosed cab and air conditioning and surround sound stereo, whatever else it had. I don't know. Going, hey, I bet it's fun to be a farmer. And you look at the price tag and you realize, oh my gosh, these things are expensive. They're expensive. And then you realize that they're expensive and they come with a warranty. So when it breaks down, obviously you bring it back to the dealership under warranty. But once it's out of warranty, shouldn't you be able to take it anywhere you want to get it fixed? And of course, the manufacturers of those tractors say, no. We only send our parts to our authorized dealers. And we only give our manuals, the service manuals, to our authorized dealers. And the diagnostic tools only go to our actual authorized dealers. So if you want to get your tractor fixed, you can jimmy with it out in the field all you want. You ain't going to get it fixed. You bring it to an independent guy, he might not have the tools. You bring it to our guy, He can fix it for you. It'll cost you more, though. It'll cost you more. And that, of course, is the problem. It's anti-competitive. So Federal Trade Commission now is being told, instead of waiting for someone to come to you and ask for exemption, just assume none of them get the exemption and go after the ones that are violating this rule, this idea. So it's good because this is the way it ought to be. So the president wants you to be able to fix your own damn iPhones and has signed an executive order instructing the Federal Trade Commission to start writing the rules and enforcing the rules to force right to repair to become the norm and not the exception. So again, thanks Bill, David, Steve, Nicholas, Jim, Bubba, and Mark who all sent it, Lauren Good who wrote the article for Wired, and all the good people like Louis Rossman, etc., who've been working on getting right to repair to be the law of the land. It looks like it might be coming. So we'll be following that as we go forward. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere, you find yourself.